Today we're going to be talking about two-way frequency tables. So there's some vocabulary that we have to talk about first. The first thing we have here is relative frequency, and that is going to be how often an event occurs divided by all outcomes. So how often an event occurs divided by all outcomes. So let's take a look at an example. So it says the HDJ hockey team has won 9 games from a total of 12 games played. So the frequency of winning is 9. That's the number of times that they've actually won. The relative frequency of winning is 9 out of 12, which could be reduced to 3/4. So if it just asks for relative frequency, you could write that 3/4. You could also make that be a percentage. So that would be 75%. All relative frequencies must sum to 1. So what I mean by that is this 3/4, they won 3/4 of their games, which means they lost 1/4, 3/4 plus 1/4 is 1. Or they won 75%, which means they lost 25%. 75% plus 25% gives us 100% or 1. Okay, so a two-way table shows data that pertain to different categories. So here is what a two-way frequency table looks like. Okay, so this one shows the number of students who like ice cream in Mr. Stromberg's class and Mr. Christian's class. And then we're going to fill in the table using the data below. So we know that there are 21 students in Mr. Christian's class who like ice cream. So Mr. Christian's class like ice cream, there's 21 students there. Mr. Stromberg has 6 students who do not like ice cream. So Mr. Stromberg, do not like ice cream, 6. Overall, there are a total of 31 students in Mr. Stromberg's class. So that's over here for our total. And Mr. Christian has 15 students who do not like ice cream. So that's all what we can fill in based on the information given to us so far. So let's go ahead and fill in the other stuff. These do give us totals. So 15 plus 6 would give us a total of 21. If there's a total of 31 in Mr. Stromberg's class and 6 don't like ice cream, that means that 25 of them like ice cream. The like ice cream we can add together to get 46 students that like ice cream. 21 and 15, those add together to give us 36. And 36 and 31 from the 2 different classes is going to give us 67 total. Now there's no rhyme or reason in terms of which of those spaces you had to fill out first. Obviously we needed to know the information that I wrote in purple from these pieces of information, and other than that you just have to fill in all of the rest of them. Okay, so let's take a look at another example here. Here we have a two-way frequency table that shows the number of students who joined the I Love Harry Potter Club in Miss Mischke's class and Mr. Kirschmeyer's class, and then we got to complete the table. So I already went ahead and did that part for us, where the ones that are typed there, I didn't fill out. Those were given to us, and all of the stuff in green is what I filled out. Okay. So how many total students are there in Miss Mischke's and Mrs. Kirschmeyer's classes combined? So that means every single person that's been accounted for anywhere on here would be the total here in the bottom right hand corner. So that's going to be 73 students. This one says how many total students joined the I Love Harry Potter Club. That means that you got to look at both of the classes. So this total here would tell us 61 students. Okay, so we're kind of easing our way into some of these questions, looking at filling in the chart, and then answering certain questions about them. So let's take a look at this next one. So here we have Mr. Fisher and Miss Placco's classes, and we're talking about if they play a sport or not. Okay, and there's a number of different questions that we have to figure out. Now I went ahead again and filled out the chart, keeping in mind that these have to add up over here. So the rows add up to this total over on the right-hand side, and the columns have to add up to be the number below. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. All right, how many total students are there in Mr. Fisher's and Miss Placco's classes combined? So that means every single student that is accounted for would be 56. What percent of students, so it's just saying students in general, we're not saying whose class they're in, do not play a sport. So that means we want to look at all 56 of the students between both classes when we're doing this. Do not play a sport would be 26. And 26 divided by 56, when it says give a percent, you got to actually divide it out. Now, if you're looking at a calculator of this, okay, it's going to give you a decimal like this, but we need to turn this into a percent. So that means that we're going to move this decimal place 2 spaces over. So that means that we would have 46.43 because that 8 is going to round up. So 46.43%. Now that's an approximation. It's not exactly that. We rounded. Okay. Of all students that play a sport, so we're just focused on the students that play a sport. That means we are just looking at, oh, and I kind of took up my space here, but that's okay. We're only looking at the 30 students that play a sport. It wants to know what percentage of them are in Mr. Fisher's class. So Mr. Fisher's class play a sport. There are 14 out of 30 of those. So that's going to give us 46.67%. When we divide that, move the decimal place and round. Again, of all the students who play the sport, so that's 30 students, what percent of those are in Miss Placco's class? She's got 16. So 16 divided by that 30 is going to give us 53.33%. We also could have taken 100% and subtracted Mr. Fisher's class because that would leave us with what's left for Miss Placco's. Letter E says here, what teacher had a higher percentage of students that play a sport and by how much? So if we're looking at these two percentages, so Miss Placco has about, so we have to subtract those. Now you have to say the word about because we did round those things. So has about 6.66% more students playing a sport. Ooh, students. All right. Next, we have of all the students in Miss Placco's class. So we're focused just on Miss Placco's class, which means she had a total of 28 students in her class. What is the relative frequency that they do not play a sport? So do not play a sport out of the 28 in Miss Placco's class would be 12. Now this just says what is the relative frequency, so we're just going to reduce that fraction. Both of those are divisible by 4, so we would get 3/7. So when it talks about percentage, you're going to actually divide that out. If it just asks for the relative frequency, you're going to simplify that fraction as much as possible. All right, last question for this one. Of all the students that do not play a sport, so we want the ones that don't play a sport, that means that there are 26 students that didn't play a sport. So that's our denominator. What percent are in Miss Placco's class? So we look back up at that. There were 12 out of the 26 that were that don't play a sport and that are in Miss Placco's class. So when we divide that, here it does say what percent, so we're going to divide it, move the decimal place, and round. So we have 46.15% of students in Miss Placco's class that do not play a sport. Okay. All right, last situation that we're going to be dealing with here today is the two-way frequency table here shows the number of students who dislike Justin Bieber with a strong passion in Miss Mishke's class and Miss GM's class. So I went ahead again, took the information that they gave me in the chart, and I filled in the two-way frequency table as I went. All right, so we have 5 questions here to answer about this. It says, how many total students are there in Ms. Mishke's and Ms. Diem's classes combined? Because it's combined, it wants this number 75 there. What percent of students do not like Justin Bieber? It just says what percent of students, so that means that we're going to have 75 as our denominator. We're looking at all of the students, not just in one particular class or the other. The ones that dislike Justin Bieber are 58, and it does say percent, so we're going to divide, move the decimal place, and round. Whoops, so 77.33% of those students, those 75 students, dislike Justin Bieber. All right, part C, what teacher had a higher percentage of students that liked Justin Bieber and by how much? So I'm going to put an M for Miss Mishke's class. She had 6 out of her 40 that liked Justin Bieber. So she had 15%, and that's 15% exactly for Miss Mishke. Miss Diem had 11 out of her 35, okay? And that's going to be 31.43%. So which one had a higher amount? So it's going to be Miss Diem. And she has, if we subtract those, so she has about 16.43% more students. Okay, so all I did is I subtracted those two things to get that amount. All right, part D, what is the relative frequency of students that like Justin Bieber to the total number of students? All right, so that means that our denominator here is going to be 75 because it's the total number of students that like Justin Bieber. So that's 17 out of 75. When we round and move the decimal place, that's going to be 22.67%. And this says the last one, of all the students that like Justin Bieber, so the ones that liked Justin Bieber were the 17 here. We're just focused on those 17 students. What is the relative frequency that they're in Miss Diem's class? So there were 11 out of those 17. This here does not simplify at all, so that is the answer to this. You do not need to give a percentage because it doesn't ask for a percentage. And that's it.